Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And sometimes the adventure of our lifetime takes a little work, takes some effort, takes some determination, some things that you may not think that you have all the time, but you do. But sometimes you need help. And I can tell you one of the things that has always perplexed me is when we're talking about smoking cigarettes. And so we've got Jessi Hartnett here, and she has been somebody. And by the way, if you want to go to her website, go to honoryourheart.net, and you can find out all about her and stuff, and how she can help you figure out how, if you're a smoker, how to quit. If you're a relative of a smoker who can't seem to quit, maybe we'll have some advice today that can help you. Because I can tell you, my dad in his mid-60s smoked his whole life. He got lung cancer. And so they had to take half of his lung. And then he said, no, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm never going to smoke again. And that lasted about 3 weeks. He got home and started smoking again. And even though we all said, Dad, it's going to shorten your life, and it did, he got lung cancer again in the other lung. So they were going to take half of that lung. And unfortunately, he had a stroke and passed away while he was in the hospital after surgery. But one of the things I'm going to ask Jessi is, in her research and the thing that she's done, why do we make decisions like that are so contrary to our health and to our heart health and to our lung health that we keep doing it anyway? But first, I want to introduce Jessi. Jessi, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Now, you are in New Mexico.
Yes.
And those are UFOs behind you, I do believe. And no?
No, it's the home of the International Balloon Fiesta. So I'm
that would be.
representing all the balloons.
Have you ever gone up in one of those?
No, I want to.
Oh, well, that can be something that would be fun to do. I don't really have any desire to go into something that is riding like that and then have it fall and stuff. So I'm chicken. Sorry. So in any event, it's great to have you here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about all the things that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about your story and your background.
Yeah. So I'm a mother and a wife, and I wrote a book about smoking because I smoked myself for 15 years, and I really struggled to quit. Really struggled. I tried 1,000 different ways, and it wasn't until I really changed my perspective that I was able to quit. And so that's why I wanted to share with other folks what I discovered for myself. And I started smoking really young. I started smoking at 13. I grew up with smoking in the home and around adults that smoked, and it kind of seemed like the adult thing to do at the time. And, was hanging out with older friends and trying to figure out who I was and belong to something, be a part of a community and be an adult. And so for me, that's what smoking meant to me at the time. And I got really hooked right off the bat. And I was, doing my paper route, earned my cigarette money. I just put everything I had into it. It became a real big priority for me, and started losing touch with the other hobbies I had at the time, because everything revolved around smoking. All my friends revolved around smoking. That was the main activity. So that's I got roped in it real quick. And I was also doing a lot with school and had a lot of expectations on me to do well in school and perform well. And so I studied really hard. I was a big reader. I was a, like a smart kid, as they would say. But at the same time, I had this really ugly addiction that was fueling all of my behavior. And it was kind of like tied together. That's what I realized later is like the more I would try to do well in school and be perfectionist and be successful, the more I would smoke and hurt myself and kind of try to relieve stress, try to get away from it. So I was locked into that for a while.
Were you one of those kids who went down behind the gym or just off campus a little bit with everybody else who smoked and hung out there during in between classes and smoked and stuff? Were you
Oh,
one of
yeah.
those
That was
kids?
me in the bathroom, anywhere I could, anytime I could.
You were smoking in the girls' room? Now, there's a
Yeah.
song called Smoking in the Boys' Room,
Yeah, I did the girls' version. That was me.
So, and it was something that because of your upbringing and so smoking in the house and stuff, it was hard for you. It is hard, and which is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, is that it's one of the most insidious addictions around, as far as I can tell. What do you think?
Not necessarily. I've heard that motif, "Oh, it's worse to quit than heroin," and personally, I don't agree with that at all. I never woke up from sleeping for a withdrawal, you know? I think that a lot of smoking addiction is a mental game, and it gets a little bit more hype than it should for the physical effects because nicotine leaves the bloodstream fairly quickly. Most of it's gone just in a few days. So it's really a mental thing, but I don't think any addiction is worse than another in terms of the pull it has on your mind and your spirit. People are pretty hooked on sugar. That's a rough one. So I think it's all addictions are kind of equal, if you will. I guess depending on how you're looking at it. Obviously some have more physical effects than others. So yeah, cigarettes hurt you.
Yeah, and my brother, who died of lung cancer, smoked until he couldn't get out of the hospice bed anymore,
Wow. Sorry to hear
which
that.
was like 3 or 4 days before his death. And so for him, it was a really, really, and he tried for years
Yeah.
to quit. But and you are right. It is actually a mindset. It's not a physical addiction as much as it is, oh, you get used to smoking a cigarette after a meal, or or when you're drinking alcohol, or when you're just so many pleasurable things you attest to, or you associate smoking with doing other pleasurable things, that when you quit and you're still doing those other pleasurable things, but you're not smoking, it seems like something is missing. Was that your experience? That was kind of mine.
It goes both ways. So, yeah, I definitely made a lot of associations with it that kind of seemed positive, but what I realized was that a lot of my smoking was tied to negative emotions, things that would come up that I didn't want to deal with, things like stress and loneliness and boredom. And I would smoke then also. So it just kind of got tied in. When I was kind of doing it with the pleasurable things, I found that it was me trying to prolong the pleasurable feelings, kind of that like bittersweetness where you're like, oh, this is good and I don't want it to end. Let me have a cigarette. So that was it's always kind of had like a negative connotation. I didn't realize this at all as I was smoking. It took a long, long time for me to even become aware of that. But I found that those things were much more pleasurable once I was really past the addiction, not just trying to use willpower to go without, but was like really over it. It's like, wow, why did I ruin my meal with a smoke after? Like I kind of look back and I'm just like, no, it did not make anything better that I thought it did. But I, I can see how we get roped into that kind of thinking and that we can't really enjoy life without smoking. That's why it's so much more than just the smoking itself. It's really the mindset you have around it.
It's interesting because my dad, when he was smoking, we asked him one time, "What's the attraction? What is it?" And he said, you could give me an ashtray full of cigarette ashes, and I would put it to my face and smell it deeply because I just really enjoyed the smell of it. And it was part of what, of course he smoked for, gosh, 50, 60 years,
Wow.
something like that. And he never could give it up. By the way, I got to ask you, what was your favorite brand of cigarettes? What'd you smoke?
Marble Reds, all the way, start to
You
finish.
They were what?
Marble Reds,
Oh,
Cowboy Killers.
you were a regular Marlboro
Yeah,
smoker.
I
Yeah, did
tried
you?
to get cheaper ones, and it was nothing else did it for me. They added a fire retardant after I had been smoking for a few years, and I was like, "Oh man, I gotta be done with this brand. Like, it tastes weird. It's not feeling right anymore. It's so chemical, feeling." But I just got used to it. Like, I
Yeah.
stuck with them. I was Reds through and through.
Then that's what you do. And by the way, did you wear a cowboy hat when you were smoking your Reds?
No, no, I felt like it though in my mind. I was looking cool. I was looking cool, looking tough.
Exactly, because for those of you that are a little younger, before they banned them from TV, they used to have commercials of the Marlboro Man, and he was a cowboy, and he'd be sitting on his horse, and he'd be smoking a cigarette, and this would be a commercial on television. Now, in the 70s, they quit that, I think, somewhere in there, and but it used to be smoking in when I was a kid. Everybody smoked. It was
Mhm.
something that everybody just did, and now it's not so much. But there still are people, and there are kids that are starting, which is unthinkable. Um,
Yeah, I think most people start as kids, or a lot of
they
people,
do.
anyways. Yeah.
They do. You were 13. I was probably about the same age.
Yep.
I used to steal cigarettes from my dad. Did you?
Yes. That was my first one, but it's all my choice. Just I don't know. I had a really strong pull to it. My dad definitely warned me. He's like, "Don't do this," but I didn't listen.
Yeah, and my dad did the same thing. Of course, I hid it from them for years because it wasn't necessarily the cool thing to do anymore.
Uh huh.
But and eventually I quit. I got pneumonia, and I was I was sitting there, and they taken a lung X-ray, and the nurse was looking at the lung X-ray, going, "You're a smoker, aren't you?" And I said, How can you tell that?" "Oh, I can tell. You're a smoker. There's no cancer yet, but you might want to be careful about that." And so that's when
Yeah,
I
that'll make you
that's
nervous.
yeah, well, and I gave it up for a period at that point. And anyway, so you gave up smoking and you did it, and you have developed a website, and you've written a book about it. Tell us about that process.
Yeah, so it's a real short guide. I didn't want to make a memoir, but I found myself when I had my daughter, I kind of just was going through a lot and really feeling called to be creative, which I missed out a big portion of my life. I was like real science person, math, numbers. I didn't really spend a lot of time being creative, but I started writing again, like I did when I was young. And what kept coming up again was my experience with addiction and all the things that I learned from it, and all the things I still wanted to learn from it. And so I was like, man, this is some really interesting stuff. Maybe I should write this down. And so I wrote a guide about how I went through a transformation, a radical transformation internally, the inner work that I took and the things that I learned, and wanted to share that with other folks. So it's not a memoir, it's a guide for you. And it's not necessarily a how to or like a cake recipe. It's like some ideas and practices that you can take on to reconnect with yourself, the things that you need, the wounds that you have, and, figuring out how to find your authentic self again, how to find your joy and your peace and your way.
Some of us spend our entire life trying to find that and never do.
Yep. And
Um,
you can always go deeper. I'm still going with it. I'm still going deeper and deeper every day. So
so when you talk about going deeper, are we talking about meditation, yoga,
th-
that sort of thing?
those are some of the tools that I've used. I unfortunately don't have the time for those things anymore as a mom of a baby.
Oh,
I can't.
congratulations! How old's your baby?
She's 1.5. Thank you.
Oh, she's probably really busy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Nothing is safe in this house. So I don't have the time for yoga and meditation like I used to, but I'm able to have like little moments that I take for that, but mostly it's becoming like self-aware, because you don't really need to take time out to observe your life and to kind of figure out what's going on and what you need, to tune into your deep needs. So I learn more and more about myself and how I can better align with what actually serves me and makes me feel good about myself and my life, instead of uh you know like indulging in self-pity or whatever thing have you. Like, these things still come up for me all the time. I have fears, I have um overreactions, dramatic inclinations. Like, these things don't go away. It's not about being perfect at all. It's about becoming aware of your habits and working slowly to change them.
And change them for the better. By the way, we're talking with Jessi Hartnett, and
Hartnett.
that's right, right?
Hartnett.
Hartnett, sorry,
All good.
Hartnett, and she, of course, has written the book, and the book is called Honor Your Heart. You can go to, oddly enough, honoryourheart.net, and you can find out all about her. We need to take a quick break, and we will be back with more right after this really quick. It's only a minute message. Just relax. Are you looking for a powerful way to grow your brand while making a real difference? Well, Positive Talk is the perfect platform to align your message with inspiration, hope, and meaningful conversations. By sponsoring Positive Talk, your brand will reach an engaged audience that values positivity and connection. People who want to support companies that share their values. Take this opportunity to showcase your business in a space that uplifts, inspires, and creates lasting impact. Don't wait. Email me, Kevin at kmmedia.pro today to learn how you can partner with us and spread positivity while growing your brand. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. It's great to have you here. And if you're a smoker, listen up. We've got a great guest for you today. Jessi Hartnett is with us, and she is a former smoker. And I'm not going to hold it against you. I think most people were at one point or another a former smoker. And you've done it, and you tell me, we got a stack of Bibles out, and you swore that you don't miss it at all. There are some people that you don't even like the smell of it anymore. Now, how much do you think the pregnancy had to do with that?
Oh, big time. Well, that's when I started to notice it. I was just feeling so nauseous. I had a neighbor that smoked. I was like, I am about to kill this guy. If he the cigarettes don't, I will. But yeah, it makes me sick now.
Yeah, and that actually turned out to be a very positive experience. That it made you nauseous, because now you associate cigarettes, the smell of it, with nausea and negativity and stuff. So that's really good. When did the book come out, or is it out now?
It's out. It's been out a few months here. Back in August was when I published, and I'm starting a membership now. That's my new thing to launch. I'm going to be putting on a membership so people can have more of that community aspect. So
That's really good, by the
yeah.
way. So when are you going to have the membership up and running?
It's on pre-sale right now, so you can go ahead and get the early bird discount, but I will be launching it in a couple weeks here.
Oh, good. And is it on your website?
Yep, right when you go to the site, it's the first thing you see.
Oh, very good. I've been scrolling through. Oh, there it is. And yes, and finding a community of like-minded people that are going through the same thing is really therapeutic, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And what decided you to do the membership, just to as a way of giving back to people and to form a community around it?
Yeah, and I want to learn more from people too. That's kind of a misconception I keep running into, is that people think like I'm a guru, that I know everything, and I'm like, no, man, I'm learning from people too. So I want to talk to people, I want to get feedback, and I want to keep going deeper with the stuff myself. And I think that it really helps people like clarify what they're doing and why, when they have a group that's holding them accountable, when they are explaining themselves and talking things through with other people. And if you're a private person, I'll be available to you too. Doesn't need to be with a group if that's not for you either. Just someone to support you when you're going through some of the hard times, because it can be very difficult to make change.
Oh, it is. It is. And I know people that have tried to quit because they wanted to do it for their health, but their significant other continued to smoke. And that becomes a really big problem for people.
Yeah, I can see that. Uh, I ended up being able to hang out with people still and spend time with people that smoke. That was a big fear I had, was like, oh no, I'm going to lose all my friends. I'm not going to be able to talk to my family anymore. Like, what is going to happen here? But in reality, I got to the root of the relationships around me. So I realized that, hey, the smoking didn't have anything to do with it. Like, we have a connection well beyond that. And then the other ones, there was like, hey, all we do is smoke together. Like, we actually don't have anything in common other than that. Then those friendships kind of went by the wayside, maybe as they should. So, yeah, that was something I was really, really afraid of.
Well, and I can understand that, but at the same time, they are affecting their health. It doesn't mean that you should affect yours.
Right.
And you should be as
Yeah.
gifted as you can be to do what you're doing. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. We have been able to accomplish, because most people, it's a hard addiction to quit.
Hmm.
And in your book, and well, first of all, let's talk about the monthly membership. That includes the ebook and the audiobook that you can put it in your car, and you can drive around with the audiobook, so that, because you need reinforcement all the time. Personal email access, online support group, weekly journal prompts to uncover your unique drive to smoking. Do you find in the work that you've done so far that people smoke for different reasons?
I think that when people look deep, it's pretty much all the same reason. It's disconnect with self and a lack of self value and self worth and self esteem. But it shows up in a lot of different ways. But I think that that's like a common kind of thing, is that people feel overwhelmed, they feel inadequate, they feel stressed out, they feel like they're working for external validation, and all that kind of stress and pressure they put on themselves. They smoke to try to deal with that. But the thing is that it's completely a myth that the smoking helps. And I mean a myth in the sense of like a falsehood. It's just really great tobacco marketing, as I'm sure you're familiar with, having seen those days with the commercials. They constantly like pounded it into the cultural understanding that smoking somehow relieves stress, and I've found that that's not true at all. That it is a stimulant, that your heart is racing, your breath is shallow, you've got hormones surging. It's like the least relaxing thing there is. It's not a stress relief. It's very stressful. And of course, all the problems it creates, you're ending up making things worse for yourself by smoking typically. So I like I said, there's kind of these commonalities, but yeah, people have their own unique wounds that they're dealing with. And that's why it's so important to reconnect with the self, because everyone needs to find their own medicine. I don't have a one size fits all, like, hey, this is what I needed to work on. People are going to have to work on their own internal struggles and figure out what's really going on. It's all centered around the thoughts around smoking. That's the starting point. So you kind of like pay attention to the thoughts you have before you have a craving. And once you kind of notice that pattern, you can start to see like, wow, this is really a common thing that comes up for me. So I had a lot of negative self-talk, and that was keeping me smoking. So every time I would quit for periods like days, weeks, months, and every time I ended up going back, it was because I was having some kind of really strong criticism of myself. And so once I was able to make that link, I was like, oh, maybe I should try being kind to myself. I wouldn't talk this way to someone else. Maybe I should, talk nicer to myself here. And as I started to do that, it became really clear that that was a huge block for me with the addiction was the amount of criticism I had for myself.
Many of us have that same criticism of ourselves because people have told us stories about that since the time we were real little. And you're not good enough. You're too
Absolutely.
short. You're too tall. You're too fat. You're too skinny. And and all of those things, or you're not smart enough, or whatever it is. And so a lot of times we use things like smoking as a crutch, or to feel like we belong. And then there comes a point in time, because going to the junior high school down by at the junior high school that I went to, there were steps that were off campus that would lead to off campus and just on the other side of the fence. And that's where everybody went to smoke and to hang out and to socialize.
Hmm.
So it became a social activity more than it became anything else. But then eventually you get hooked and you get used to doing it, and then you do it, and then you get a craving, and then you do it, and then you get stressed, and then you smoke. It's terrible because you're hungry and you smoke, you get stressed, you smoke, you're relaxed, you smoke. it's it's it can
Yeah.
be it can be crazy.
Yeah. It was hard for me to function without it. I didn't know what to do. So then I had to start just sitting with myself, and it's like, what do I really need here? Like, what's going on? Like, I was so out of touch with my emotions. Like, that's what I used the working really hard. Like I said, the focusing really hard on work, and then the smoking. Like, I used both of those things to distract myself because it was really hard for me to sit in the quiet and listen to my thoughts and get in touch with myself. Because there's some things that I didn't want to deal with. And so once I was able to kind of go through that hard stuff and kind of pick apart what I was actually feeling, and I could figure out what I needed. So like I would smoke a lot with anxiety, and I started drinking water instead. And every time I wanted a cigarette, I would drink water instead, and it did wonders. I was very, very dehydrated from smoking, and that helps me. I still do that now. So that really kind of just turning these habits into like a different behavior, because you want the behaviors to serve you and actually help you, not make the problem worse, where you get stuck in this rut, stuck in this cycle, and can't get out of it.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that are just not as self-aware as you have become. What about you specifically makes you as self-aware as you became? You're not an older person by any stretch of the imagination, and you've got a 1.5-year-old daughter. How did you get so self-aware?
It took practice. It was uncomfortable. It was really, really hard. So I guess maybe I started by just slowing down and questioning, kind of just like having that open mind. Like in Buddhism, they call it beginner's mind, where you kind of just throw everything you think you know out the window and ask questions. So I would be like, oh, I need a cigarette. I'm dying for a cigarette. I need a cigarette. And I would ask myself, why? Why do I need that? And just kind of start picking the threads of things. But it was really not something that was comfortable at all. And I had to like dedicate time to it ultimately. Like when I really did my final push and was able to quit for good, I was doing meditation. And at first, like I thought that meditation was going to be this wonderful, relaxing thing. I was just going to cross my legs and float away. It was going to be so peaceful. And it was not at all. It was awful. I was like going through hell. I was like, what are these voices in my head? I don't like what they're saying. Like I had to really sit with some super uncomfortable parts of myself. And I feel like facing that is what helped me enhance my awareness, was like allowing those things to come up instead of shoving them down, because when it's uncomfortable, we don't want to deal with it. I mean, that's why people keep smoking too, because it's uncomfortable. Even the physical effects are uncomfortable. So I guess maybe that's part of it, is just being able to sit in the discomfort, go towards it, because you're going to get something out of it. It's worth it. It's like a long-term kind of goal. It's like, okay, this is going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to learn from this and it's going to help me. So that's kind of what helps me now. I can really start to recognize patterns. I still go to distraction when I don't want to deal with something. I can find myself scrolling or, just doing something to not deal with what I don't want to deal with. And now I know it's a sign for me. I'm like, oh, this is something I actually need to deal with because like I'm going to distraction here. I'm trying to like, comfort eat or something. And so this is something that is actually going to benefit me to untangle and maybe change my beliefs. It's about changing beliefs because people smoke. I think that was a great intro that you started with your father, just like what could keep someone coming back and doing this thing that is destroying their life. And it's the beliefs. It's the beliefs that we have that we're getting some benefit out of it, or that we can't get something better, or, these beliefs that we will hold on to, and you only see that thing. And so it's hard work to change beliefs, but the first step is becoming aware of them. And then once you become aware of them, you're like, hey, maybe this is something that was true in the past, but does this need to be true the rest of my life? And kind of just like I said, question it. And then you can actually do things to kind of change your beliefs over time. And one of my favorite tools is using affirmations. So you kind of just like hammer in the thing that you want to believe. So I had to do that with the negative self-talk. Instead of being like, oh, I hate myself, I'm so weak, I don't deserve things, I would come back and say things that were nice to myself, like, I love myself, I'm strong, I can do this. And it felt really weird at first. I didn't like it at all. I was like, this feels, hokey, and I don't believe it, but I wanted to believe it. And I knew that if I stuck with it, that something good would come of it. And I was able to really shift the beliefs I had about myself, where I saw my own self-worth, my own value, and just thought of myself completely different, that I had a purpose, and life's only gotten better from then.
And the fact of the matter is we all have a purpose. We all have a reason for being here. And one of them is to take care of the physical body. We are energetic souls in a physical body, but one of them is we've been given this body to take good care of. It would behoove us to take good care of it. By the way, we're talking with Jessi Hartnett. We need to take a quick break, and we will be right back with more. And she's going to give us some tips, I hope, on quitting smoking and what to do when you quit for a week and a half or 2 weeks. This is a personal story from my past.
Mm-hmm.
And something comes up, and this thing comes up, and it makes you incredibly angry, and you are feeling stressed, and you're just feeling like, and then you get this thought, I'm going to the store, dang it. I'm going to buy me a pack of cigarettes, and I'm going to smoke the whole thing. I want her to tell me how she managed to avoid that. We will be right back after this quick break.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Jessi, I got to tell you, I keep on playing that commercial, hoping that it will be the last day that I ever have to play that commercial again, because there are 4 million kids that are homeless on any given day in this country. That it should not be allowed, and we need to take steps to fix it. But sadly, I think I'm going to be playing that commercial again tomorrow. What do you think?
Yeah. It's part of life, the struggle. It's hard to watch.
It is indeed. So let me ask you, when you're talking to somebody who is in the process of trying to quit smoking, and they're doing great, and they're having a good time, not a great time, but they're surviving it. And then something happens to come up that rattles their cage to a great degree, and then they want to do something that makes them feel comfortable, either in if they're trying to not gain weight, and so it's not pizza, but they think, no, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to buy a pack of cigarettes. How do you get them to stop doing that?
So what actually helped me, like I said, it took me a lot of times to quit. A lot of times. So I would be very clear on the benefit that you think you're gonna get. Okay, what problem is smoking gonna solve here? Okay, it's gonna make you feel less stressed, right? Or it's gonna, take away the anger. And I would go to light up. I would have these thoughts. Okay, have a very clear outcome I'm expecting from smoking, and then I would light up, and this doesn't do anything. It was that repeated disappointment that actually helped me come to the conclusion that the benefits that I thought I was going to get out of smoking were not true. And so that disappointment was actually what part of my ability to quit, because I would have that craving, like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I should smoke. I would tell myself the cigarettes won't help. And I would know it in my heart. And so I think it's okay to have a relapse, because you can actually learn from it. And it's all about just changing your beliefs, that you know that you're not going to get the thing that you so desperately want from it. Because if cigarettes were really great, then everyone would be smoking. No one would want to feel any of these unwanted emotions if they really, really do it. But it only has the power that you give it. So I would, just start really questioning those beliefs, and do an experiment if you need to. Because I did a lot, and they never did the thing that I hoped. So
what experiment would you do?
The experiment would be to see if you get that benefit. And you don't.
Unless you do.
You don't. I don't believe in willpower as the solution out of smoking. It can have its place in the beginning, because it's hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be weird. You're going to have to feel like you're missing something, like you mentioned earlier, because you're so used to doing it. But it's really about, for me, in my journey, I found it is about changing the beliefs. And that's why I don't miss it. When I was young, I had people around me that had quit, just a couple people. And I really looked up to them. I'm like, wow, they're amazing. They quit. Maybe I could. And then they talk about quitting, and they're like, oh yeah, not a day goes by I don't want a cigarette. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that. I'll just smoke then. That's pathetic. I'm not living that kind of life. And that's just how I was able to get out of that, was because I knew that I wasn't missing out on anything.
So it was you through positive affirmations and positive self-talk, you changed your perception of yourself and the perception of the world around you by using the affirmations, and you were able to then negotiate a change within yourself and made it stick and made yourself believe it. I think
and I think that that could help too. If so, I don't really want to encourage someone to go back to smoking, obviously, because you deserve better. So that would be an affirmation that you could tell yourself too in those hard times. I deserve better than this. I'm working for something better. It's bolstering yourself up that the cigarettes aren't on that pedestal anymore, that you're not going to get that great thing, or that you can have other ways to find what you're looking for. Okay, I want to relieve stress. Maybe I should, take a bath, go on a walk. There's a million different options that are going to be actually closer to fulfilling your needs than smoking. So but like I said, it really did take me a lot of times to get there. So people get so harsh on themselves when they quit smoking and they fail at it. And then they're just like, oh, I can't do it. I'm just going to give up forever. But I think those are really valuable learning moments. And that every try counts for something, that you got something out of that. You got closer to the source of your smoking and what you really need, what the needs that are unfulfilled, that you're trying to stick smoking in there and make it work, but it doesn't work.
Well, and the interesting thing is the cigarette companies, they kind of get it.
Oh,
They
yeah.
know that. See, when I first, I'm going to play a little trivia quiz for you. When I first started smoking, when I was 13 years old, I'm a little older than you. You know how much cigarettes cost?
I can't even guess. Tell me.
55 cents.
Ooh. Yeah, they got up a
And
bit.
and they were in a vending machine at the gas station. And so I could take my 2 quarters and a nickel and wait till nobody was looking and go to the vending machine and buy a pack of cigarettes. At 13 years old, I wasn't supposed to, but nobody monitored any of that. And the other thing that they used to have candy cigarettes. Did you know that?
Yeah.
So it became an endearing thing. They even had chocolate candy cigarettes. That was really cool. But they had packages like the regular cigarette packages, but they were candy. So they were reinforcing the idea to young kids that smoking is cool, smoking is a thing to do when you can, rather than now it's like they show, damaged lungs and stuff, which is different. But now, see, they knew that they could raise the price of cigarettes, which are now like $12 a pack, and people would still buy them. Isn't that crazy?
Yep. I saw it go up big time. When I started, it was $4 and it got up to $9.50.
Yeah. Well, think about if you do the math, and you can probably do that pretty quickly. But if you were by the way, how many were you? A pack a day smoker? Were you a couple packs a day? What were you?
It ended up being half pack. It would be more like if I had a party, for sure.
Yeah.
I was smoking the whole pack there, but it was a half pack.
Yeah, which is 10, and I was somewhere between 10 and 20. But if you did what I did, which was I associated it with everything, it's hard to get it to quit. But if you take, if it's a pack a day as an example, and you take $12 or $13 by 352, and then you do the math. That's like $800 or $900 that you are lighting on fire and blowing up in your face.
The cost is so much higher because of the health. It's a lot of money to take care of yourself, to deal with the problems. That's what I realized too, because that was never a big motivation for me, because I was like, oh, I have more money than I know how to spend when I was, no kids and 2-income household. We had a lot of money at the time. And so that wasn't motivating to me. But I realized that I started having a lot of dental issues. I have a very, very expensive mouth, and those costs add up big time. And I still have to deal with those costs. Even though I haven't smoked in years, I still have to maintain my advanced gum disease and all the problems I have in my mouth because of smoking. So there's big unseen cost.
Yeah,
that's what the worst part of it is, I think.
And the one thing that I've learned, at least in your situation, is that a 2-income household without any kids, you had tons of money, and then you have a kid, and suddenly you're broke.
Gone. It was a dream.
And didn't we used to have money? What happened here? I thought we had money. And
I was willing to spend anything for that pleasure too. I found that like a lot of people that are, broke still find money to smoke somehow. Because I had rough times too. There was times where I made $30 a day for everything, and I would still somehow find money for cigarettes. You can make anything work when you think that you're going to get that big of a benefit. It's just like, I can't go without it. That's the kind of mentality that'll keep you paying for it. So yeah, I didn't find financial stuff as a big motivation for me to quit. And then also not the physical stuff either at first, because it was so far off in the distant. Like I know cancer is very close to you and you had that experience, but I never knew anyone with cancer. And even if, I had come across somebody, it's like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. So it was easy for me to write that kind of stuff off, that like when you're young, you think you're invincible and then nothing bad's going to happen to you. And even as I started getting sick, I got rosacea, I got skin problems, I got teeth problems. Even then, I still kept smoking through my surgeries. I was having mouth surgeries and still smoking after them because I felt that I needed it. The pull was that strong that I thought I was getting some benefit, because that stuff stresses you out too. So you're going through this medical procedure and you're scared, you're worried, all these unwanted feelings. The very first thing you want to do is smoke, if that's the only way you know how to deal with those feelings. So.
Oh yeah, and did you ever have you had to have dental implants yet?
No, I've had some grafts. I still have all my teeth, I guess, but they're not.
Oh
They're
well.
not in good shape.
Well, I wish you well with that, and I hope the teeth, because that is a big health indicator and stuff, and
Yeah.
if so, I'm hoping that the longer you're away from it, and they'll heal and all that kind of good stuff. It really is important. By the way, again, we're talking with the author of Honor Your Heart. Her name is Jessi Hartnett, and you can go to her website, which is, honestly enough, honoryourheart.net. Find out all the information with her. You can join her membership. You can get her book. And if you're a smoker, I highly suggest that you look into it so that you can then be a non-smoker, because you're going to find, where did all this money come from? I'm suddenly have got oodles of money in the bank that I had no idea. How'd that happen? We need to take a quick break, and you're listening to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We'll be right back. Don't you dare go away.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. It's great to have everybody here. And we're talking about one of the most, in my world, one of the most insidious habits in the world, and that's cigarette smoking. I wanted to ask you, did you get caught up in this vaping thing that they're doing?
I didn't vape. I smoked a lot of pot, but I didn't vape.
Oh, now there's an admission for you. Well, now is it legal in New Mexico?
Yeah. There's a lot. Like, there's this dispensary in every corner.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
It used to. Now it's legal in Washington as well, and we used to have every other year, when the legislature came in, they would wring their hands about how they're not making any money, or they have to raise taxes, or they have to cut benefits and all that. They legalized cigarette smoke or pot smoking about a dozen years ago now, and they haven't talked about money once, because they make enough money off the taxes that they're getting from the marijuana sales that they're funding themselves suddenly.
Wow.
So I hope that's true.
Lucrative business. So yeah, that's what I had to end up putting that down too with the cigarettes. I was playing games with those.
Which was harder for you?
Oh, I don't know. I did them at the same time ultimately, because I kept trying to play games. It was like, oh, I won't smoke cigarettes, I'll smoke weed, and I'll smoke less weed and smoke cigarettes, and I had to stop it all. It was all affecting my gums too, like we were talking about.
Yeah. That is. I had a gym teacher one time when he was talking to us and going, if you're going to drink or you're going to smoke, at least you get something out of drinking. You get to feel differently, and maybe you'll get a hangover. Smoking has no residual value at all, was his idea, and I tend to agree with him now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Depends. I don't know. I don't drink either, so I found that I wasn't getting a lot of value out of that. either.
Boy, you're just a straight arrow these
I
days,
know.
ain't you?
No fun.
You're no fun at all. You don't,
That's what everyone
you know,
said when I stopped, but I have so much more fun. I feel good. I feel real good.
you feel good, and you've got a baby girl that you're doing all kinds of stuff with, and stuff. So congratulations, you deserve that.
Thank you.
And if somebody wants to buy your book, can they go to your website?
Yes. Go to
And
honoryourheart.net and get the book.
and and the book will help you find ways to quit this insidious disease. It's almost like a disease. It's a addiction. But in my brother's world, it was. I mean, even when they said you've got stage 4 lung cancer, he would not quit. And somehow he thought that the cancer would just go away. Guess what? It didn't. And so that, but we all think like that, don't we? We're pretty much immune to our own humanity and fallibility because we think we're going to live forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important what you mentioned there with the disease model. I found that was not really helpful for me with addiction because I kind of fell into that too. It's actually really smart marketing. I know we were talking about that used to be glorified a lot in commercial smoking was, but that nowadays they have the Surgeon General's warning on it. But I think that's actually really effective because it kind of makes you think that like, oh man, I'm hooked. I'm gonna be a smoker for life. There's nothing I can do. It runs in my family and no one else has quit. And you kind of get into this mindset where you're just like, kind of excuse yourself. You're like, oh, well, I'm just, smoker for life like everyone else. And I didn't like that at all. With the disease model, it actually helped me shift when I realized that I have power and choice. And it was tough because I want to use excuses. I want to be helpless. But when I actually stepped into the choice I had, then that's how I was able to stop. But yeah, I see that coming up a lot with people, especially, growing up in a home with it. They're like, oh, well, it's been in my system my whole life and there's nothing else I can do about it. And I beg to differ, that we all have power over our own choices, although they can be hard choices.
Now, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned Buddhism early on, and I just wanted, is your transformation away from smoking, is part of that also your spiritual awakening or your interesting interest in that?
Absolutely. So I was real down. I was in full nihilism. I didn't think that I had any value or purpose in life, that it's pure Darwinism, that it's survival of the fittest, everything is competition. And I didn't see any connection to anything divine, anything beyond the scene, anything deeper than just paying bills and getting good grades and going to work. And that got me really, like, really down. And so when I was able to be introduced to some spiritual ideas that resonated with me, that was a game changer because I started to question the beliefs that I had had. Maybe that there is something more to life than, competition. That maybe that we just have inherent worth, and that there was something in me that's valuable and I don't need to earn it. And that was a huge switch mentally for me, where I realized that a lot of my unhappiness and a lot of the emotions that were the negative self-talk that we talked about and the unwanted emotions were fueled by that need to make other people happy, to have this outward appearance instead of what actually brought me light and joy just from within me. And so that was huge. Just being able to look inside myself for what felt right. It's called intuition. I actually had no connection with it, or very little connection. I had tried to be ignoring it and just do what I was told instead of what felt right for me. And so that's why I titled my book as Honor Your Heart, because that intuition comes from the heart. It's not logical. It's just something that you feel right about. And when you start to tap into that kind of knowledge, it is so clear that smoking is not helping you in any way. It's your body is like screaming out to you every day, like, please stop smoking. And you'll ignore it because you got your mind going. You've got the rationalizations and excuses and the beliefs that, you're stuck on your path with that. But The heart can really help you tap into what's actually good for you, like long term, and just for you, not for anyone else.
And at the end of the day, our lives here should be about us.
Yes.
Because if you don't have a good self-image for yourself, you can't help anybody else.
It sounds selfish, but it's not.
No, it all begins with home. And
Yeah.
then if you feel good about yourself, then you can give to others easily and effortlessly, because that's what people do who are secure in themselves.
Yeah.
And it really is, you're right, it's counterintuitive, but it works. And the changes that you can make in your life are monumental when you give yourself credit for being who you really are.
I agree with that 100%.
And I really appreciate having you here. We're running out of time, sadly, but what I'd like to do is I would love to give you the opportunity to tell our audience anything that you would like them to know.
Yeah, well, I think we tapped on it. The most important thing is to be authentic and be the real you. And it's like one of the scariest things to do ever, because you have to be vulnerable. You put yourself out there. You're not sure how people are going to react to it. But when you're aligned, when you're on your goal, on your road, your path, your purpose, everything kind of just lines up right, and doors open for you. And suddenly things don't seem so scary and overwhelming. So if you're smoking because you think that you need to be something better than you are, I would really push you to try to tap into that inner goal that you have, because you have value. You don't need to earn it. And when everyone figures out what feels right for them and how to be their best selves, the world becomes a better place. We don't need to take on the whole world's problems and try to fix them. We need to be our true selves and shine brightly, and that together makes everything work. So that's my big idea here.
And that is a great idea. And because we are all one, we're all part of the same family. It doesn't matter what we look like, what sex we are, who we love, what color we are, we're all the same. And we need to treat each other with kindness, love, and affection. Jessi Hartnett has been our guest. I've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much. It's been great fun. Go to honoryourheart.net. I think there's a whole lot more to this young lady than we have revealed so far. She may have to come back and we talk more about who she really is and where she's going. But I applaud you for doing what you're doing. Give your lovely daughter a kiss for us, would you?
I will. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great conversation.
Great fun. And go to her website, get the book, Save Your Heart and Honor It. Honoryourheart.net. Thanks again, young lady, and have an awesome day, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin at kmmedia.pro.